Hello and welcome to the Selfishly podcast. My name is Sebastian Corvey, or you can call me Seb. And on today's episode, I have, as always, another amazing guest for you guys to listen to. Her name is Gemma Rice-VanHeer, and she's one of my newest friends. And I'm so excited she's on the podcast. She also really wanted to do the podcast, which is really great. We met last year whilst on Kentucky together, and we became really close. We just started bonding over having similar emotional struggles and anxiety and mood stuff that bonded us really quickly over the time. And she also lives quite near me, considering we met on the other side of the world. So I'm excited that we're talking and that now we're friends and that now she's on the podcast. We talk a lot about all that stuff in the podcast, which is exciting. But Gemma also studied psychology and philosophy at uni, and I love both of those things. And so we randomly just suddenly deep dive into some deep questions about life and death and consequences and just some bizarre existential questions and ideas. And it's really good. I really loved that we talked about that. It was great. I'm excited for you to hear it now. And so I'll stop rambling as always and let you enjoy the podcast. So thanks guys. Take it away, me. Damn it.
This will be a blooper.
Thanks, Dev. Yeah, literally. Anyways, I'll edit that out. No. No, just in case you're wondering. Anyways, welcome to the Selfishly podcast. My name is Seb Corvey, or Sebastian. I haven't decided what to say yet. Yeah. Today, I have my really good friend, Gemma. Oh my gosh. I don't probably know your last name. This is so embarrassing. I was thinking about this earlier today.
No.
Yes.
Oh my god. Okay.
Because it's, I remember
fair,
Rice. Rice? Yes.
Okay. Rice is like legally Rice is my last name.
Okay.
And VanHeer, which is how I go on Facebook,
Yeah.
is my stepdad's last name.
Okay.
But it's also like my mum's last name and my sister's last name.
Yeah.
So to have like this family unit vibe, I'm like socially known as like Gemma VanHeer, but like for all legal intents and purposes, it's Gemma Rice.
Okay.
So.
And you would have to go through a process to change it all?
Yeah, I actually looked into it a few years ago. It cost about $90, and I was like 16 at the time, and I was like, fuck that. And like, I'd have to change my license and my passport, and I just figure like, I'll change my name when I get married.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
until then, I'm not going to go through the hassle.
Yeah, because then you'll have to do it twice. And they're going to be like, is this girl? Like,
She can't make up her mind.
Yeah,
Also, it's like, did she get a divorce or something? Like,
yeah. She on the run? Is she trying to like hide?
Yeah.
I think that's the way. You know how I was saying I'm all about this being really casual?
Yeah.
I'm super stressed.
That should be like your intro. And it's like, welcome back to my podcast.
Yeah, everything's fine. So after that 5-minute breakdown, Mum actually told me because she listened to it, she was like, it sounded like you needed a glass of water at the start of that. You could tell that your lips were really dry. And I was like, oh, thanks, Mum.
I hate that sound though.
I know.
That like, that weird mouth sound.
Yeah. Do you know of like ASMR? Yes. People love ASMR.
Yes.
I just don't really like it. Do you like it?
I feel like I would have picked you as the person that would like it. Really?
Really?
Yeah, but you know what I like the most is that sand, when they like cut the sand. You know,
Oh,
sand?
yes. Oh, I love oddly satisfying things.
Totally.
But ASMR, I don't know if I find that
when
satisfying.
they cut it, that sound of them cutting it.
Oh, see, I like the visual of it.
I mean, it's a double whammy for me.
A visual and
and the sound. Completely
Oh,
non-sexual.
Yeah.
Just putting that one out there.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even introduced you
I know,
properly.
I was going to say, have we started?
Yeah, literally though. So, hello again.
Yeah,
This
hi.
is fourth try, I think. I'm here with Gemma Rice. She also goes by Gemma VanHeer.
Yeah.
I met Gemma on a Kentucky last year.
Can you believe it's only been 1 year, though?
No.
Yeah.
It actually does feel like I've known you for a while,
Yeah.
which is funny. Because I think the weird thing about, like, not the weird thing. I think that's just what happens. That seems to happen a lot with people when they travel and they meet people.
Right.
They seem to get along really quickly.
It's because we like experienced so much together in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
You just kind of have that different bond.
Yeah, true. And especially when it's like emotional.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we had a good time on Kentucky,
Yeah.
but we also had like we said, a bonding time through emotional angst and struggles.
Yes.
But we came out on the other side brighter than ever, I would say.
I would agree.
I mean, and now I have you.
Yeah.
And you have me.
Yeah.
So you're welcome. But anyways, I really wanted to have you on the podcast, and you really wanted to be on the podcast.
In a non-forceful way.
Yes. So I'm really happy for you to be here. And this is also like the first recording since I've made the other ones like kind of public.
Great.
So it just like feels kind of different. Because before it was just like a casual thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a casual thing.
Casual.
But I just mean, I don't know. Now that I know that like it's really going to be out there, as opposed to just like I'm recording this to maybe publish later. Does that
More
make
structured and it's like real now.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a schedule. I
Yeah.
need to make sure things are posted and uploaded.
Edited.
Yes. But that's okay because I love doing that.
Yay.
So
I'm so glad.
thank you.
I really am.
I'm glad that you're here as well.
Thanks. Me too.
Let's talk about the Kentucky. We'll just like
Great.
jump in because that's where we met. How did you end up wanting to go on that trip?
That trip.
The Kentucky.
Yeah, good question. Like I was working, so basically I went straight from doing high school into uni.
Yeah.
I did full-time uni and then I went straight into full-time work. And I was working there for like 9 months. And I just kind of like was like, oh my God, am I like living my youth or am I just going to sit in an office all day and like work? Do you know what I mean? Like I hadn't really like traveled since end of high school. I hadn't really done anything exciting.
What were you studying? Like, what was the field you got into?
Bachelor of Psychology.
Oh, cool.
And then I did a graduate certificate in Human Resources Management. But I was working for a property developer at the time, and it wasn't like I wasn't passionate about it. It was just like a job.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? Like, just stuff this. I just like quit. I quit my job.
Oh my gosh.
And I booked a flight to Europe.
Amazing.
And I was like, I'm going to go. And then I was looking at Kentucky's and I was trying, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be alone the whole time. I just completely was doing this all on my own.
Yeah.
And I found the one that we went on, Mediterranean Quest.
Yes.
If anyone is interested.
Yes, it's really good.
It was a good one. It was a good amount of time. It was like 9 days.
Yeah.
Because I thought, just not going to spend any more than 9 days with the same group of people.
Yeah.
No chance.
My fear was always like, what if I don't like anybody?
Yeah.
And then you're stuck on one of those 30-day ones.
Oh my God.
Or also that whole idea of the 30-day, and whenever I would hear about Kentucky's, everyone would just be like, well, you party the whole time and it's like hardcore and you're just like in a place and you wake up somewhere new and then you're in a new place the next day. And I was like, that sounds exhausting. I'm already exhausted.
I agree. And I didn't want to like you say, just like sleep throughout the day and like miss being in Europe.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to experience it.
Yeah. No,
which
I totally get that.
The Kentucky
That's it.
gave.
Yeah, because I remember it was like advertised. It was like a history sort of one where you like, you just went and it was super casual. Like you weren't doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it felt like we still did a lot of stuff.
Oh my God, we did.
So then you just like decided on that one. Were there other ones you wanted to go on, do you think?
Yeah, there was. So I actually had booked in to do the like Eastern Europe one a couple weeks after our one, but ended up going home early, so I didn't get to do it. But I was like really tossing it up because I was looking at where they were going because obviously there were a lot of places on my bucket list that I wanted to go to, and then our one just like ticked most of them, so it just made the most sense to go on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had you ever really like thought about doing Kentucky's before that?
Like
had you done them before?
Little bit. It was my first one.
Yeah.
But like, it just always made sense to like do one if you're traveling alone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I just thought it was like the safest way, like the most convenient way.
Yeah.
I was like, could not be bothered looking at accommodation and all that kind of stuff. Like traveling as well.
Well, they do it all for you,
I
and you just
know.
like get taken to the space, like, so you don't have to worry about it. I mean, that was like such a good thing that actually being herded onto the bus and being like, okay, no, we have to be there by this time.
Yeah, and then it's like,
I'm down
at the front door of your hostel. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and we know it, and we're
this.
on the way. Yeah. And so you liked it, like what? So going into it on your first like couple of days, what were you like? What was your idea of it?
Oh my God. Okay. I was really scared.
Yeah.
I was nervous Because A, being alone, and B, being mostly introverted as well. Not to the point of being shy, but to the point of like having to like actively like go and approach people in groups of people where I would rather not do that.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I would rather just stay alone.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to obviously be a loner. So I was tired.
Yeah.
Really tired. Like all the socializing and
yeah.
all this information coming at you of like this person's name, where they're from, what they're doing, and it's like freaking hell.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I remember on the first day we were like on the bus from Barcelona to Nice, I think.
Yeah.
And we did like one of those games where you had to like sit next to someone and
like
tell them about yourself.
Dating.
Yeah, like a speed dating thing. And I don't remember. I like remember I remembered people's faces,
yes.
but I didn't know their name.
No.
I hardly remembered where they were from.
Yeah.
And what they were doing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I know.
It was already too much. But
I almost forgot where I was from. They're like, where are you from? I'm like, oh, what? Oh, Melbourne. Yeah.
I'm from Australia.
Yeah.
They had like a spiel by the end of it. It'd
Yeah.
be like, this is who I am. This is what I do.
So contrived.
I know.
Like, just felt really yuck.
It was so much better at the end when we were just all at dinner and then it was just like casual conversation. Like,
Yeah.
it was like we weren't forced to
Yeah.
have to socialize,
Yeah.
but we were now in that setting where it was like, oh, I like actually can be bothered. Not can be
But also,
bothered, but like
have
putting
a proper
interest.
conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, who can have a conversation like 30 seconds and like half the time you're stressing about what you're gonna say,
Yeah.
and then worrying about what they're gonna think of you, and then
Right.
I remember I would be doing it and listening to them, and in my mind I'd be like, I'd just be like thinking about what I said,
Yes.
and be like, what do I look like right now?
Yeah.
And like I just didn't hear anything they
No,
said.
neither did I. And I had my mouth being sore from like smiling.
Yes, that's actually
It's
so
like,
true.
Like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so fun.
This is my best. You're like trying to be
Yeah.
your best self.
Yeah.
You're so right. It's totally like speed dating.
Yeah.
And it would have been harder because like you said, you didn't know anybody. A lot of people
Right.
there were either in their pairs. Like I had
Yeah.
Jess.
Yeah.
And then even if everyone was in like pairs or
Lots
threes.
of, friends like traveling, and then they were like, "Oh, like, are you traveling with anyone?" I'm like, "No, I'm on my own." And then they're just it was either like sympathy or like awe. They're just like, "Oh my god."
Alone?
Yeah, like seriously, are you okay?
Yeah,
I'm like,
what?
yeah, I'm okay. Like that's so brave. Like I didn't like go to war. Like,
Yeah.
I just traveled. Like I got on a plane.
Yeah, I'm on the same bus as
Yeah.
you. Like,
I'm really fine. It's like I'm not alone at all.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, especially like you kind of get forced to be in those situations, interacting with people because you have to stay with them as well
Yeah.
and sit next to them on the bus. But
You have to be nice, which
Yeah.
like this is gonna sound terrible, but like I just like hate that like phony niceness of like small talk and like those really contrived interactions. It's just like people tell me all the time that like they're just kind of like, you're kind of a bitch, and I'm just like, I just don't have time for like pretending that I'm
Yeah.
interested. Like I'm not trying to be rude, but at the same time, like
But you
I
got
don't
other
want to
things you
be
need to
like
think about.
stuck in this conversation that I don't care about.
Yeah.
So if that makes me like mean, then I guess I'm mean.
Well, I mean, you just know what you want, or you know what to use how to use your time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's probably a reason why you like
Maybe I
that.
just have, like-
Have you just like always been like that,
I
or
think so. It's kind of like an emotional detachment, I think,
yeah,
from people. And it's like only, it's like only certain people can I really like sympathize with and be invested in like their life and them emotionally. Otherwise, I can be quite cold,
yeah?
I suppose.
And so, do you find you have just like a lot more of like a smaller group of like close friends you have, or do you still have like a big social
No,
group?
totally smaller. It's so minimal. It's
Yeah.
like almost to the point of having no friends.
I mean,
I've got
that's
you.
like, yeah. What am I?
Yeah, no.
No, I get that. No, I actually do get that because I like a lot of my friends are. It's either just like me one-on-one with them,
Yeah.
or it's you know what I mean. Going out to dinner, it's never
Right.
really a big group thing.
Right.
Maybe it's more about the individuals.
But also, it's like you and I are friends, right?
Yeah.
But we wouldn't like text every single day.
Yeah.
It's not like a super, I don't know, needy. Like,
No, I
friendship,
totally get that.
suppose. It's like we're friends and like we'll catch up and it's amazing, and then we'll like not talk for a few weeks, then we'll catch up and it's amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
those breaks.
Yeah. Well, I don't like if I don't hear from you, I'm not like
She hates me.
what the. what is this?
Yeah.
Who is this girl?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is what I do. Which is what I do
Right.
when you don't reply to me. But
When do I not
no,
reply?
I'm the one who doesn't
I
reply.
know, you suck.
I'm sorry. How did this get turned on me? This is my
You're the
podcast.
psychopath.
Yeah. God damn. I was just thinking because, like you said, I felt like we got along really well, and
Yeah.
like especially like you said, you just get emotionally like exhausted, and when I usually holiday, I will like feel. I will like show how I'm feeling most of the time.
Totally.
Like if I've had a bad sleep,
Yeah.
you'll probably know. And that's not me trying to be like, oh, I had a bad sleep, feel bad for me. It's just
Right.
me literally being like, if only I had a better sleep, I would have been happy. I don't know how to.
You just want to let your emotions like come out as they are. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to like be covering them and pretending
Yeah.
to be something else. Like I don't know, that doesn't sit well with me. Like I just feel like people always try to, especially with like social media and stuff, it's always like, oh my god, everything's fine and I'm
Yeah.
amazing and I'm always my best self. And it's like, if you're upset, be upset.
Yeah.
If you're angry, be angry. If you're pissed off, be pissed off.
Let yourself feel that.
Yeah, feel it.
No, I totally
and,
get that.
Yeah.
I was.
But at the same time, I'm such a hypocrite because I never do that.
I know. I was literally about to say. I remember I did a podcast with my friend Keisha, and we were talking about. I remember when I was younger.
Yeah.
I was talking to my sister. It was like I was in year 8, and we were walking home, and I just said, "Hey, like, when you go up to groups of people and you're talking to them, do you kind of know like the best way to be like optimal, like to make it like not make everyone happy?"
Ingratiating yourself. with
Yeah, like and she was like, "No, that's just like super fake." And I was like,
Right.
but it never felt fake for me. But then I suppose it was like, well, if I wasn't saying the things I was truly wanting to say, then that becomes fake, I suppose.
It's like, are you being your true self when
Yeah.
you're molding yourself into what you think they want you to be?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Deep.
Yeah. Wow.
I was not expecting that. I love that. I'm gonna think about that.
Like, I guess you could consider that as being fake,
Yeah.
but other people, like politically correct people and like people that are like really
Yeah.
annoying, would just be like, no, like you have to adapt to situations
Yeah.
and this and that. But there is a fine line between
Yeah.
not being your like who you
Yeah.
are and then like
Yeah.
you know, putting on a smile when you're
No, I
pissed
get
off,
that.
you know.
Yeah. Honestly, most of the time I do think I'm pretty. Now we're talking about all about me. No, I do think I am acting. What's the word? Genuine.
Right.
Obviously. No.
Comes so naturally.
I don't know now. I'm thinking about it. Like, I mean, you're making me. I feel like I'm a psycho.
Like, do you even think that you like?
I
are
think
in
I do it
tune with your inner self?
I mean, yeah. Like, I know what I like. I mean, I suppose. Like, not I suppose. Like, when I'm alone and I'm thinking, and when I'm thinking about how I truly feel, I feel like I'm really honest with myself.
Yeah.
Because I have gone to this place where I feel like it's necessary for me to be aware of the way things make me feel.
Yeah.
Why they make me feel that way.
Yeah.
And then even now, even with people, like, I would say in high school, it was really about that. Like, it wasn't even like fully shifting to like make people happy, but it was just more like, oh, I know like they like this kind of joke, so I should joke about
Right.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of, maybe it's just like, maybe that's the same thing, like a people pleaser sort of thing. But I mean, I feel now like I'm generally pretty honest about how I'm feeling, because I got to a place where I'm like, feel what you want to feel.
Right.
I mean, I like now I think back and kind of cringe sometimes to me on the Kentucky of when I was in the worst mood and just like
really?
let that flood out, you know?
Yeah. But to be fair, you were like feeling some like pretty. You were feeling
Yeah.
feelings. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were feeling it.
was a
You
time.
were so homesick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It was like a bundle of anxiety, and like
Yeah.
I missed my boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was all just like
It was a lot. And like, I don't know, was that the first time you'd really.
Well, the thing, see, that's why it's really confusing, because like when I was younger, I never used to be able to go to school camp because I
Yeah.
was like couldn't stay away from home
Yeah.
like overnight. And then that like led into high school, and then I just like got better and could stay at friends' houses and stuff. And then at year 12, I like went overseas on like a school trip where I didn't know anybody. So it was like a kind of like a Kentucky thing. And then I like went to New York and like traveled heaps. And I went and did summer camp for like 3 months. But then at the end of that, my nana passed by an accident. So I had to come home.
Yeah.
And then I went to Europe again about a month after going home because I was meant to go straight from camp to Europe. And then when I was on that trip, I was fine. I was on my own. And there was like a couple of days where I was like, I wasn't like anxious, but I was more just like depressed, like didn't have the energy to like do anything. But then I like went, and then I got into a first relationship and I traveled again. And then I was like anxiously homesick. So like I was on this Kentucky.
Yeah.
So like all like changes. It's all so confusing. I don't know really like how I kind of travel anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's all really circumstantial, I suppose.
Totally.
I mean, that could be for everybody.
I think so. Yeah.
I was just in the position where I was able to travel a lot. So I got to experience myself in all those different moods.
Yeah.
Like I even like, because Jess and I never originally planned to go on the Kentucky either. We just like, we're going to travel, but then she really wanted to. Yeah. And because I had traveled alone before, I hadn't done a Kentucky, I was always like hesitant, and I was that person who was like, I don't know if I want to ever do a Kentucky. Yeah. And then we did one, and it was like really good compared to my expectations. Sure. It was better than I expected. Yeah. That's not to say it was like perfect time. Like right, like there were plenty of times where I remember it was you and I just like walking somewhere or having like dinner or lunch at a cafe and just like being unloading. Hate this. Yeah. Being like, we need to get off of this.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We were like depressed.
It's so confusing because I just like look back and there were like so many like really fun times, but then I remember a lot of it being like sad and stuff.
Totally. I remember like the alarm going off one morning. It must have been like 6 o'clock, and we were in like Capri or Sorrento or something, and I woke up from this dream and I was looking around and I'm like, I'm still here. Like, oh my God, I'm still here. Get me out. Like it was, and I like cried that morning. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. And everyone that I spoke to was like, what do you mean? Like, you're in Sorrento. Like, how could you not want to be there? And I was like, I just feel so shit. I feel so flat. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to engage with these people. But then there was like those moments where it was like actually really fun.
Yeah, no, I
actually had a really good time. So it's so confusing. I totally get it.
Yeah, like you were saying before, do you consider yourself more introverted person?
100%.
I always don't know where. Like I always say I'm like a bit of both. At the same time of me like being in a big space and wanting alone time. Yeah. I'll be like alone and be like, I need to be surrounded by people right now. Right. So it's like a weird mixture of depending on my mood. It's
not an introvert to the point where I can't be with people. Like I absolutely can. I'm absolutely fine. My preference is to be like alone or with smaller groups. Yeah. That's just like my preference. Yeah.
And so it gives that time to like recharge as well.
Oh my God.
I mean, like you say, especially when you don't want to have conversations that are just like that surface level bubble of like nothingness.
Yeah. And you're like, I hate so much. And like even starting working full time, like I get home from work and I'm like, wow, I'm really tired because it's like I'm talking to like all these different people. I'm on the phone, I'm on emails. Like it's like so tiring. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, I just want to be alone. Even though it's not like a big party and stuff like that, it's just all those mini interactions that just like nip away at your energy. Yeah. So I think as long as you know how to recharge, I think that's the most important thing.
And I suppose like you know your limit as well. Yeah. Like you know to the extent of like how much you can deal with someone or who you can deal with, you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's funny. It's like kind of, it sounds, all these things I think sound awful when I say them out loud, but it's like being aware of how much time you want to spend with someone. Like, I'll be honest. There's some friends where I could be like, I can see you for the day and then I need my break. You know what I mean?
Literally, me, like, one of my really good friends, love her, but like literally the same. It's like it's like after a few hours I'm like, I need to have a nap. So I'm gonna go. Love that. I'm literally 0% after spending time with you. But it's not anything bad. It's just like very charismatic and outgoing, and it's like trying to keep up with that energy. Yeah. Uses double my energy.
No, I totally get that. Like like trying to match, just like keep at the same level and like but sorry, like we were talking about, we'll go back to the Kentucky thing. Sure. Well, so what did you, because you would still do another one. Yeah. Do you think?
I think so. Yeah. You know what? I actually don't know, because the days were long, right? And
Yeah.
we were getting up.
The sun didn't set from
Were
like
you saying that, like,
16
6
hours.
times?
I would say it every
Like,
day.
there is no darkness. Like,
Well, we wake up and it's bright, and then it's
Yeah.
8:30 and it's
like,
bright.
but like midnight, and it's like
Yeah.
the sun is still
Yeah.
like, not dark at all.
True.
Yeah.
It's too much for me.
It was hard because I didn't feel rested. And like you go to bed so late and your legs are exhausted, you're walking all day, and then you're up at 6 and it's like, and you like you have to have like 3 other people get to have a shower before you get to have a shower, and it's like far out.
I just want to be clean.
Yeah, and I'm tired, and then it's like by the time you fall asleep you have to be up again, and that really was hard.
Yeah.
But like the friendships, you know, like look at us, like that stuff is so fun, and traveling on my own, being able to like share memories with other people.
Yeah.
It was so depressing having to just take selfies all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
I get that.
Yeah.
So many, me in this space, just like the
Yeah,
same,
yeah.
like same pose, but different backdrop, just like edited
another
out.
bridge in Venice.
Yeah.
It's like, so boring.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
It's like hard because it's almost like you wanna have all just. It'd almost be easier if you could travel on your own and just like have in like friends just everywhere, so you can just always hang out with them.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But
you can
I
do that
still
by
like traveling on
Kentucky's.
my own.
Yeah.
I think it like, I don't know, it just really changed me, and I can't even describe how. All I can say is that when I think back to the person that I was before I left, I feel very different, and like even from like leaving to like coming home was different, and then even from like a year ago to now, it's so different.
Yeah.
Like, it's just nuts.
No, I totally get that, especially like when you're traveling on your own. I would always say I learned how to be like comfortable in my like on my own completely, because there were some days where I would like be having dinner alone or like lunch alone at a restaurant, and a lot of people actually can't do that.
Yeah.
Like they don't want that like silence, and it can be so daunting.
They don't want to like check in with themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's scary.
Yeah,
for
and
some people to be alone.
yeah, and so when you travel, I mean, what else can you do? Like, I mean,
Like
obviously,
15 hours on a plane.
yeah, and you're
On your own.
all on your own with your mind, so
Yeah.
you start to like become more aware of the way things like. And I remember there were a few days where I was alone, and I was in Italy, and I didn't. Like I only would speak a couple words a day because there was no reason to like really talk.
Yeah.
Or I wasn't interacting with people enough that I would have a full-on conversation.
Yep.
So it even began to the point of being like, okay, I'm not even like talking. I'm just like
Yeah.
existing in this world and just like existing in my mind of like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like an inner monologue.
I totally,
Yeah.
totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
Totally. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like how much you learn about yourself.
Yeah. And having time to actually think about things, like I think I might have said this to you when we were at dinner the other night. I was saying it to someone. It was like actually not having like, for a little context, I'm unemployed at the moment, looking for a job, and obviously there's other things to think about, but there's so much time where I can actually think that it's not me worrying about work or money or people. Like you get to start thinking a lot about things. And honestly, before I used to think I thought about things a lot,
Right.
but I was thinking about all the other like distractions and parentheses, as opposed to like, okay, like this is what do you want to do with yourself? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what I would do is like spend a lot of time thinking about like relationships, and like what were like my actions, like what was my influence in this situation, and like I don't know, just understanding my own like downfalls as well, and like understanding how I like have gotten into bad habits in terms of like engaging and operating in my life, and just being like more aware of it.
Yeah. What's the whole process? I mean,
Yeah.
to make a change, I saw this thing once and it was like 4 steps, and it was like subconscious action, and then it's a conscious realization that you're doing that action, and then it's a conscious action to change that until that becomes the new subconscious action and replace, if that makes sense.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's like, it's really difficult to be, and this is going to sound really wanky, but like to be like self-aware, like what we're talking about now, being that self-aware, and then being or like meeting someone who is so not there.
Yeah.
And you're trying to explain it to them and you're trying to point it out to them and like help them and they just don't get it. And it's like, why?
I know. It's really interesting.
You can't train someone. You know what I mean?
No.
Like they have to get to that point.
Yeah, and well, exactly. It's almost like when you say you can't make people's decisions for them.
No.
They're ultimately going to have to make the choice to do something. Like you got to, like you said, you have to be open to, you know, thinking about everything. And if you don't want to, then like, well, they're not going to.
Open. That's it.
Yeah.
You just have to be open to knowing that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
And like you can be better, and it's not to say that you're not good enough.
Yeah.
It's just like you can be different if you want to be.
Yeah.
Like, you can fix the things that you don't like about yourself if you want to.
No, exactly. Charlotte was talking about how when dealing with anger, it's an empowering emotion. So people want to feel empowered in a situation. No one wants to feel vulnerable or like sad.
Sure.
So as opposed to going to that space of being like, okay, I actually might be in the wrong and I'm in a bad space or I may be not being aware of things I need to be aware of or whatever. It's much easier to feel anger and wall up to that.
It's such a common symptom of depression. It's like you don't want to feel sad about it, so you're gonna, you know, transform that energy into being angry and lashing out, and most importantly, at the people that you care about the most.
Yeah.
It's like, it's sad.
It just becomes a cycle.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That is sad.
Yeah.
It's better that people have been talking more about like depression and mental health lately. I remember when, you know, it wasn't even that long ago that people didn't really want to talk about it. Yeah. Or if you were, there was like that underlining, oh, something's wrong or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how different people like cope with things or interpret things.
I still think there is a lot of ignorance about it.
Yeah,
and
true.
It's like two sides of the spectrum. It's like people don't really understand it still, or people think that they know everything about it, and it's like you really don't know until you experience what it is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that.
I feel like there's two sides to that coin there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're right. Especially when it comes to stuff like, I always talk about social media, but there's so much information out there. Yeah. That's even like with news stuff.
Right.
Like, I was having a conversation with my pa, who's from Queensland, and we were just talking about, you know, China and like China and like Ecuador and just all these different, like, in the US and the economy and climate change and everything, and just even hearing the different opinions based on like geographical location. You know what I mean?
And culture.
Yeah, like
that's actually amazing. That's really actually really fascinating.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, well, it makes me even think about the Kentucky. Yeah. Oh, there was a night where we were making pasta. And
okay, least favorite night of the trip.
Sorry. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because I feel bad now mentioning this. Because
why?
So anyway, we were making the pasta, and Gemma had to sit on the opposite table to us.
Yeah, because they didn't leave a space
but
for me.
But it wasn't for any reason. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Anyways, I'm a really good friend. Anyways, that night we were having a conversation on our table, and it was like there were Americans, and we were talking about like gun violence and gun laws, and like
had
a really interesting conversation. But it was actually super interesting, because you can only hear so much of, you can only read or hear so much from like online, the news, or like you know, social media, whatever. Yeah. But actually having the conversation in person about it all was actually so interesting, and it did change. Like it did, what they said did change depending on where they were from. Wow. Like one of our friends, Jess, she's in Dallas, Dallas, Texas, and she was saying that the gun laws there, people still want them as a means of like defense. And then she was talking about there was a girl in her apartment building who got robbed at gunpoint, and Jess was saying if she had a gun at home, she could have defended herself. Okay. But that's like that's
That's definitely one opinion.
Yeah, but exactly. And that's based on like probably Texas and her surroundings. Like, I mean, I can only guess at this point.
It's
but
all like nature versus nurture, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. How much...
believe in that 100%.
Yeah. How much is impacted on us?
Yeah.
How much... Well... What you actually... Let's talk about that. That's really interesting. You said that.
Yeah.
What do you think about nurture versus nature?
I
Oh my
think...
god, we should talk about this. You studied psychology. What am I doing? We should have been
Start
talking
this
about
whole
this
podcast again.
Literally. No, yes. Tell me all about that.
I do think it's really interesting, and it's definitely a combination of both, in my opinion. And I just think it's so hard to say what it is. Like, we did this study, so there was this TV show, and they sort of like followed this guy, and basically he was this really just like average guy, you know, just living his life, whatever it might be, and they did a brain scan on him, and it found out that he had this gene that predisposes you to like anger and like violence and aggression, and they were sort of like figuring out why this gene was never triggered, and it came across that his childhood, because his childhood was so like peaceful and like loving and amazing, that it never pushed him to trigger that gene inside of him, whereas I think he had family or something that were in prison. I think he might have been like adopted or something, whereas like other family members who had gone through sort of like more rough childhoods and like might have been exposed to that, their anger gene was triggered in them.
Wow.
So that is really fascinating.
That is actually so interesting.
Yeah. I just think, and again, it's all about being open. It's like, how open are you to what's going on around you, and like how open are you to other opinions? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
no,
like
definitely.
You have to be troubled and open, and having like those discussions to help you form your views. But for me, like, people say like, oh, why do you vote like left or right or whatever it might be, and I'm just like, oh, because my parents do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
I don't actually have an
totally
opinion of my own. It's like I just follow what they do. But then the more you talk to people, the more you like broaden your nature. Yeah, it can change the way you feel about things.
Yeah,
definitely. But I think in terms of like personality, in terms of like being introverted or extroverted, I feel like that might be nature.
Yeah,
I feel like there are some things that you definitely just can't fight.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah.
Like you just like people who say it, like you are who you are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about your own life. You know what I mean? It's like, would you be a different person if you grew up in a different country, or if you grew up in different socioeconomic status? Like, I don't know.
There's a movie I watched once called Sliding Doors. It's got Gwyneth Paltrow in it. Have you seen that?
I only seen half of it actually.
It was like,
it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's just about a woman who goes to catch a train, and in one reality she catches a train, and in the second one she misses the train. And the whole movie is like parallel of how, because of that one incident, how it's like how everything is played out differently. And I mean, true.
Oh my god, I'm seriously, the last couple of weeks, that whole scenario of like, if I had taken a different avenue, had I had made a different decision, how different would my life be right now? It's just been on my mind so much lately.
And
but then I also think like, would I be where I am? Like, would it have just naturally just come back to this point anyway? Like, I don't know. It's either like fate, and like you can take any turn, and no matter what, you're always your destiny is going to be your destiny. Or it's that other sort of like school of thought in philosophy where it's like, you know, you have two avenues, and in that moment you decide which avenue you're going to take, and that changes your fate, and that changes your outcome. So it's like, it just depends on which school of thought you lean towards. But I really don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I all the time I'm like, oh my god, it's fate. Like, you know, everything happens for a reason. Sign. It's like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. But then I think like, nah, you know what? I changed my mind. I think for the most part, I think that life takes me where I need to go. And if I didn't experience the things that I have, like, I wouldn't be as like resilient, or I wouldn't be as like informed as I am now. Do you know what I mean? Or as self-aware as I am now if I didn't go through that.
for sure. And even it made me think of like the idea of like free will, and they say, do you choose which way you do anything? And then it's one of those hard arguments where it's like, but we just keep debating the whole idea.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like you just said,
Yeah.
We're the result of all our experiences.
Yeah.
And I've actually been thinking about expectations a lot.
Great.
In the sense of, what am I like expecting out of life? Or like when I am ready to go to a party or something.
Oh my God. It's so funny that you say that. Expectations are really important.
Yeah, because they're also based on what we've experienced in the past as well. So like if, just say I'm going to a party and it was a certain friend's party and it might have been a boring party. My expectations for that party might be that's going to be a bad party.
Right.
So then you go with that idea and then it's either going to be, oh yeah, I was right.
Yeah.
Or actually this is so much better than I thought. But that whole idea was based on what I had previously thought.
Right. So can you have a free thought?
Yeah.
Like you'd have to like lose your memory.
Yeah. Like if we're just gonna choose.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really.
I feel like I can't put it into words,
Yeah.
but it's like you can't have like a completely
unbiased choice. Because even the reason why you might prefer something over the other is not because in that moment you want that, but
what's influencing you.
Yeah, subconsciously you're being influenced. Like,
Yeah.
my third year folio, I had to do a research essay and was talking about like the uncanny and the fight or flight, our instincts. Like even all those body processes that happen subconsciously and just happen. It's from like a history of
we as like people have developed those skills and those like, it's that thing when you're born, it's like a reaction. It's like, it's intuitive. It's like you can't choose to do that. You naturally, if as a baby, if someone puts their finger in your hand, your natural instinct is to curl your hand around their finger. It's just the way that it's our DNA. Yeah. The way that we've grown as a species.
Yeah. So then that all just adds up together to be like, well, do we really have any choice in what we do?
Yeah. I think no. Like, it's like, I can choose to have like cereal, but I'm choosing to have cereal because like, not because I'm purely in this moment and my mind is free of any unconscious bias and all that.
You're just listening to your body.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, maybe I haven't had cereal in a while and toast is making me bored. Like, I don't know. Whatever it might be. Yeah. But it's cool to think about.
I mean, yeah, it is cool to think about. I just like, I'm still kind of thinking about that, to be honest.
Yeah. I remember
just because I think it's really interesting.
No, it is. And like philosophy, I did a couple subjects at uni. And even the concept of time travel in a philosophical way is just really amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
tell me about that.
Okay, so there's this like the grandfather effect. So the guy goes back in time, right, and kills his grandfather. Okay. So then the grandfather never like met the grandmother, never had the dad, never had the son. So the son could never have gone back in time to kill his grandfather because he was never born. Yeah. So you're in this vicious cycle of like what's happening. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so people either believe that, or they believe that there's like two parallel universes where they go back in time, but it's like a parallel universe and it doesn't affect what's happening in real time. But yeah, it's interesting to think about those things and kind of choose an opinion on it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
When I first wanted to do the podcast, I originally was in a kind of dark place. So it was kind of morbid, and I just really wanted the first question to be, what do you think happens after we die?
Oh, that's so fascinating.
Well, I mean, exactly, because like this whole thing, everyone has a different opinion, like for different reasons. Yeah. Like, and so I actually started asking a lot of people because I was also just curious. But the thing that was also really curious about it for me was that no one had an answer. Yeah. You're not really going to have an answer of what happens because
there's no way of knowing, and that's the beauty and the frustration in it.
Exactly. And that's what makes it even more interesting, because then it's like, well, some people do the choices they make are so that they just feel more comfortable with like knowing that's going to happen.
That's my whole opinion on like warning guys, controversial. It's my whole opinion on religion. It's like, I don't know if it's true or not. Okay, how am I to know? But in my you know, understanding in my experience of religion, it's that it's like, it's a way to explain the unexplainable, and it's a comfort, and it gives you peace of mind in the sense that knowing, you know, someone passes away and it's like you feel safer, you feel more secure.
So it's comfortable.
Yeah, knowing that they're in heaven and that they're, you know, looking down on you and that their spirit is with you. Do you know what I mean? It's like that it helps you to cope and to survive.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe it goes back to that it's a family thing. Like, do you think maybe it's a cultural thing?
Oh, definitely. Like if I think back to my family, both of my parents were from Dublin in Ireland, and it's like society is driven by religion and beliefs and Catholicism, and it's just who you are. You're just born into that society, and that's what you know, and that's what you believe in. And then you think of sort of like the Middle East and how they have a completely different set of values. And then, you know, like Western countries like Australia and America, for instance, completely different again to China, India, Africa. Like it's so, but at the core, what I find so fascinating is at the core, it's the same. You know what I mean? For the most part, we have the same foundation and the same values of, you know, wrong and right and justice and injustice, and it's like that common theme, but there's just so many variations, and it's like, you know, if that variation helps you, then so be it. But at the end of the day, you know, you believe what I believe, which is be a good person, right? Live in the best possible way, give to other people, help, be compassionate, those kinds of things.
And it's also interesting at the same time to see the kind of opposite effect.
Yeah.
Just about the people who are in it selfishly.
Oh,
I mean,
for
that's
control
probably just the best
and
way.
power.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. And even just in the, like, everyday sense.
Oh, right.
Of, you know.
That almost an arrogance that comes.
Yeah. It was just an interesting way of seeing how people, like, different people, like, can take in religion, interpret it. Yeah. I suppose that goes back to
nature and nurture. As well. Totally. How could you not be a product of your environment? Well, you know, how could you not be influenced by the way that you were raised and the people that you surround yourself with? And it's like, you know, if you're going to surround yourself with people that will lead you down a dark path, then inevitably it will happen. It's, you know what I mean? It's like you are what you eat.
Yeah. Ideology.
Yeah.
Ideology.
Yeah.
And so you're not a very religious person?
No, I mean, similar to you, I went to a Catholic high school.
Oh, yeah.
And like I used to go to church when I was younger, and I did all of my sacraments, like First Communion, confirmation, etc. But not in the sense that I pray or I don't go to church really, just on Christmas and Easter. But there are times when I guess like look for like guidance, I suppose, you know what I mean? And I don't know if I'm talking to a god, a higher being, a guardian angel, whatever it might be, but I guess I'm just putting it out into the universe, and I'm letting the universe, like, you know, guide me on my journey, kind of thing. That's where I feel I sit most comfortably. Do you find like you're spiritual in any other sort of sense? I don't think so. No. I kind of want to be, in a way. Like I think that crystals have a really amazing power, and I would like to be more connected to like crystals and like tarot cards as well. I find all that stuff really, really fascinating. Yeah. But I haven't really like gone down that avenue yet. Yeah.
No. Well, I mean, yeah, it's true. Well, like we were saying before, kind of like, I always just think it's really interesting to hear just like the other side.
Yeah.
Of, like, even like I would even say with my parents, because on my dad's side, he's from Chile and Italy. Both his parents were Catholics. I'm not exactly sure what exact one, but I knew they were Catholics. And like, so was my auntie, but my mum's family was never really religious.
Right.
When I was younger, they wouldn't always talk about it, but they would like say like heaven and hell and like God. And so it was more of, for them, it wasn't so much about being like, oh, you're Christians. It was more just like being aware of like a spiritual possibility sort of thing. Like for Mum, and I really want to do a podcast with her.
That'd be awesome.
And it would be so cute. Well, all my family members.
Yeah, awesome.
just to have. But for her, it was a lot about that idea that she'll be going to a place and be reunited with like family or friends, whatever. It's really comfortable and
and
makes her happy.
And you know what? The thought of like dying, it's scary.
It's so daunting.
It's really terrible. If you really think about it, like it's actually quite scary. And I think the thought of that reuniting with your loved ones makes it like a much more peaceful process. I think.
Well, like you said, it's so daunting in the sense no one knows what's happened. No one knows what's on the other side.
Right.
Essentially, you're gonna be like alone with your mind.
Right.
Who even knows?
Well, that's what I always say. The thing that freaks me out the most, it's like, let's say that you die, but you don't know that you're dead, and you don't even know that you've lived, and you have like there's just nothing left. Do you know what I mean? It's like this. It's not like you are like some ghost, and it's like, oh my god, remember when I was like a kid?
Yeah.
And it's like there is no conscious anymore, which is just so scary.
It's so strange. Well, especially because I mean, every waking moment there's some sort of like conscious like like
we're always like working towards something, right? And then all of a sudden it just stops.
Yeah. And it's something that happens to everybody.
Yeah. Cannot fight it.
And it's
and that's what's really interesting as well. It's even though it's a common like thing that will happen, it's undeniable, it's still one of the most scariest things to the human race. You know what I mean? It's like everybody goes through it. Nobody's different in that sense.
And people experience it a lot. As in like are affected by it.
Yeah.
It makes sense for why people kind of want that reassuring idea.
Yeah, totally.
Because for a lot, I remember once. Well, when I was going down my rabbit hole of like, what do people think happens?
Yeah.
I remember I was trying to figure out for myself what I thought. The point I just keep coming back to is, if there is anything, I will be there. It will be my mind, conscious thought, soul, energy, whatever it
might be,
on its own, in a whatever, like.
Is it black, white? What is it?
Well, that's the thing. It's nothing, but the thought for me, myself, isn't like, okay, where will I be? It's more so, I need to be comfortable in who I am and able to live with myself.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did too, because I mean, it's true. It kind of like went hand in hand with the traveling alone.
Yeah.
And sometimes I literally felt like a ghost because I wasn't having any impact. Yeah. That huge impact on anything around me. You know what I mean? I was eating
that's
and
actually
just, like,
it is like that, isn't it?
And you were just sitting and like thinking.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what else. Like,
it's so quiet.
Yeah. And I remember I said that to a friend once, and she said that was the scariest thought she could ever have.
Wow.
She was like, I do not want to be like, that sounds awful to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so yeah, that's how I kind of took it.
No, that's awesome.
But because like what else can you do?
Oh, I know, and we can like prophesize and guess and imagine and fantasize about it, but I mean, sometimes it does more harm than good. I don't know when you like delve too deeply into it. Yeah, but it's an interesting concept. It's all of those unknowns. Yeah, humans just trying to unravel it, and you'll just do it forever. There's no answer, as you said before. It's just our own imaginations running wild.
So, what do you think happens after we die? Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Are you okay to talk about it?
I am okay to talk about it. I really don't. I don't know. It's so weird, especially this year. Like, my dad and then my cat as well. I know it sounds really stupid, but my cat was like literally the love of I can't even, like, she's just, oh my God. And you know what? No, I never understood connections to pets until I got my cat. And it's like, oh my God, and now I understand. And I always tell people this because it's really cute. Yes. You know how people always say, like, if you had one wish, what would you wish for? My wish forever was that my cat and her name was Duchess, would like live and die on the same day. We would like live our lives together, and then we would just die on the same day. We'd never have to live without each other again.
That's so sweet. Sorry. Oh my God, are you okay? I'm dying. That's so sweet though.
I know. But what do I think happens? It's weird. I don't know. Like, it's, you know, it's really weird. It's just like seeing like seeing a body that is clearly gone and there's just no soul there. Like you can see the soul has gone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I
it's
totally
just
understand what you
the
mean.
vessel.
Yeah.
There is like that person is not there anymore. And I like, do I believe in a heaven? Maybe. But then it comes back to the whole thing of like, you know, is that the consciousness is gone. Do you know what I mean? It's not, it's like for me, it's like not there anymore. And like they don't know
Yeah. I get
what they're going through or what they've been through. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if they, sort of go to another place or if they linger on earth or what it might be. I just feel like, and it's kind of like, this year was like my first experience with death. And I just feel like it just ends and it's just like, that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And it's kind of sad and it's kind of like crap, really, because it's so just like blunt. It's like, that's it. Like they're just gone.
Yeah.
They're not here. They're not there in
like
heaven.
To be continued.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not going to see them again. Like that's that. And you just have to learn to move on from that. Do you know?
Yeah.
It just, for me, it just feels very black and white at the moment. That might change. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels like, no.
Well, it's also like probably easier for
Oh
you to
my
be
God.
honest. Like
That's probably so true.
that's as simple
like
as it needs to be.
yeah,
Like, it's
no,
probably just
literally.
easier for you not to think about.
Oh my God. And I think you're right. And naturally, I'm the kind of person to compartmentalize and internalize and then just shove that shit right down and never look at it again. And I think if I can tell myself that it's like, if I can make it that sort of transactional of like life, death, you know, make it that black and white and detach that emotion from it, as I said earlier, you know, becoming that colder person and not letting those feelings in, it's easier to move forward.
Yeah.
And I kept telling people all the time, it's like, you know, I don't want to like sit in these emotions. I don't want to, you know, not like delve in. I don't want to like live
dwell.
in it. Dwell. Yeah, I don't want to dwell on it. And everyone's like, yeah, I understand that. But I think like more than anything, it was me just completely shutting it out.
Yeah. Not having, just trying not to even.
I just wouldn't let myself. And if I just think of it as like, that's it, you know, it's not, it's, that for me, that's what's comforting.
Yeah.
For me is just that
Yeah.
psychopathic like approach to it, but whatever it might be. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like kind of true because we don't know.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get stuck in that cycle of like trying to figure it out, especially if it's not like, especially if you're not really a religious person.
Yeah.
Because you could say for them, like, that's another quick way. Oh, they're just in heaven.
Yeah.
I'll see them later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
It's like, oh, they're just out to the shop.
yeah.
Like, you know, they're not far away. But yeah, without having that spiritual like sense and that spiritual like drive, yeah, I think it just becomes that very black and white transaction piece for me.
Yeah. I always used to just think, because like kind of saying when you see a body,
right?
Like I remember my Poppy had passed away. He'd had a heart attack, and we all went to my Nan and Poppy's house. This was before she had her accident, and we were all there, and they were keeping him for the night. It was like a cultural thing, and so Mum and Dad said, "Do you want to come say goodbye?" Like whatever, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll go." And I went in, and like you said, you can see that it's not the same.
No.
It's just not like an energy.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
because
yeah.
even though I know it sounds super wanky, but at the same time, it's like the best way to describe it is like sort of, even when you go and meet someone or like haven't seen them in a while and you can just feel that it's like a good
vibe
vibe
it
around
is an
them
energy.
sort of.
I really like that.
And when people are mad, like I was having dinner with a friend couple of months ago, and we were out in the city, and there was a drunk guy there who was being super rude. He was making a commotion about something, about his shoes getting dirty from the waiter or something ridiculous. But regardless of that happening, he just like had like this body pulse of like bad, like
that aura,
yeah,
right?
you know, and that just happens. Like sometimes people are just like that. But that used to make me think of like, oh well, an energy sort of thing. And then when you just saw that, oh well, there's nothing there. It's
Yeah.
like, well, like what's next?
Yeah.
Like what happens? And so I used to just think it's sort of like a universal energy and it gets recycled, like everything else in the universe is
Right.
like recycled,
Yeah.
not created or destroyed, you know,
Right.
just reused.
Yeah.
So I
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I just think about that.
Yeah.
For me, that's enough for me. Like
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right. You
it's
don't
ki-
need
know
any
what I
more
mean?
answers.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's like comfortable being like they've lived their life.
Yeah.
They've now like they've moved on from this body,
Right.
and however their energy gets used next is
Yeah.
like good on them.
Yeah.
And then it's just like trying to remember and acknowledge the people who've passed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like that's enough for me. Would be happy to be reincarnated.
Yeah.
Or you know what
right.
I mean? Like,
yeah.
no,
Totally.
but I mean, that's just
Yeah.
that's just what the thought pattern I ended up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if that works for you, then that's like work it.
I mean, who's gonna tell me I'm wrong?
Not me.
Yeah, some people actually.
Yeah, no. I'm sure there's a few out there.
Yeah.
They'll argue about anything.
Yeah, they'll just stop listening. No.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people actually never want to talk about that sort of
No.
stuff, and that came up a lot as well when I would ask people.
Yeah.
They just like either weren't comfortable talking about it, or they just didn't want to, or
It's like confront, especially if you've never dealt with a death. It's like it's not something that you are experienced with. It's not something that you've gone through, and it's kind of like, you know, I don't want to think about this. You
the
know,
daunting idea that there's one day it's going to be pitch black
yeah,
or something.
yeah, yeah.
Wild.
It is. It's wild.
It is wild.
Wild. Yeah.
Kind of like going full circle and
Great.
like thinking we went real deep
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
I'm just for a second, let's like pull it back in. But at the same time, it's kind of like it could go back into deepness. But was there a reason why you wanted to leave your trip? We're going straight back to the Kentucky
Question for
thing.
you first.
Oh, okay.
What did you have in mind of what we were going to talk about? Similar to this?
Oh, that's a
or
good
like,
idea.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to talk a lot about the Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then about how we met each other.
Yeah.
And then because we actually haven't had lots of conversations about like your life.
Right.
And I mean,
It's a
I'm
crazy one.
curious. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know what you were like in high school or school or like what you like with your family. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all those things you kind of learn about people as you develop the friendship. But we were, like we said, thrown into that situation of like you
Right.
become super close and like
Instantly, right?
yeah, and at the same time, it's not a needy sort of friendship of being
Yeah.
like, you need to come to my house. Meet like this is the first time you've been to my house.
Yeah, I know.
And like you said, the Kentucky was like nearly a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
No.
For some people, it might matter,
Yeah.
but it doesn't.
But it's like it's so good. It's like you could be friends with someone in high school, right? And it might take like, you know, a year or whatever, and you consider yourself close friends. But the fact that we were together for 9 days and we're like, yeah, we're good friends.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just that forced. But you're leaning on each other. Like you're going through, like we were going through such similar emotions and such similar feelings that
Yeah.
we were that comfort for each other, I think.
Yeah, and then we were also super like present at the time. Like you know, we were like, well, you're in a country where you don't know anybody else.
Yeah.
You don't have your normal group of friends or family or like even normal like sleep schedule or comfort zone.
Or
know,
your
it's completely
clothes.
out-
Like you don't even have your wardrobe.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you have the same 4 things you wear.
out of the exactly. You're living out of the same suitcase.
Yeah.
And so it is like, well, there's not much for you to cling on to. So when you find someone
Yeah.
who's a good one, you're
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna cling.
This is like a familiarity. This is something that'll get me through.
Yeah. And so like that's why we didn't talk that much about like
Our proper lives.
our proper lives because
Yeah.
we were, like we said, dealing with what was happening at the time.
Yeah, I like that. We were
Yeah.
very present.
So I was originally thinking maybe we'd talk more about that,
Right.
but I feel like an idiot, even though you've mentioned it to me so many times about like studying your psychology and all
yeah.
that stuff. I didn't even like cross my mind
Right.
to go down like that like deep conversation path
Sure,
of like
sure.
ideas, because I love talking about
Oh,
ideas and
no.
stuff. It's so good.
It's so fun.
Now I like you even more.
Stop.
I
As
actually
if that
don't
was
know.
possible.
Yeah. But I had a few ideas, but I at the same time was just excited to see where it would go.
Yeah.
Because I know that we are good at conversations
Totally.
together. You know, like Like, on our trip, there were the times
Yeah.
when we were just like talking, and it was just like no bar back, like honest
It
talk.
felt so comfortable. It
Yeah.
didn't feel like I had to be like aware of what I was saying, or like, oh my God, is he going to judge me? Like, it was just so freeing.
Yeah.
to have those
Yeah,
kinds of
and be
conversations.
super honest about
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I wasn't worried. I was like, I'm excited to see where this goes. What did you expect?
Oh, I
What
didn't
were you
expect anything.
expecting?
No, nothing. And especially because I know you kept emphasizing, like, you know, just let that conversation flow. So I didn't want to have any like ideas of like, I want to talk about this. I'm just gonna be like whatever
Yeah.
comes my way. So it was cool.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I like that. So yeah, okay, well then you asked your question, back to mine.
Yeah.
Was there a reason why you really didn't want to keep going on your trip? Like, what was that for you?
Oh, look, so I had been with a couple of friends before Kentucky, and like we had gotten to like a tiff, like a bit of an argument, and that really put like a whole damper on like my whole mood. It really just like shifted everything. Like I was having the best time, and then I had this big argument with one of my friends, and it just like it just like flicked that switch in my mind, and I was just like really pissed off and just angry, and I was like, oh, what's the point of even being here anymore? Like,
Yeah.
I just want to go home. And that was probably like 3 or 4 days before the Kentucky started. So I think I was carrying like that with me. And then I was like, oh, like this feeling isn't going away. And like, I'm trying to have fun. It's not working. And like, because I was feeling so shit during the first Kentucky, I was like, the second Kentucky is going to be just as bad. And then I just remember talking to you guys, and I was kind of like, should I go? I was like, no, I'll stay a bit longer. And then because you and Jess were like, we're going to go home early, like we just feel like it's the right decision. It just kind of spurred me to be like, yeah, I think that's going to be the right decision for me as well.
Yeah. I totally remember our chats.
Yeah.
Where, like, it was sort of like, I wouldn't say like, it's, the word I'm going to use is like pep talky, but it wasn't
Right.
pep talky in the sense of like, oh my God, you should totally just go home.
Right.
But it was more like, because you would, like you said, you would talk to some people on the trip and they'd be like, what do you mean? Like, this is the best time.
Yeah, they didn't.
And that idea of, I am having a bad time.
Yeah.
Wasn't like,
It's so foreign to them.
yeah,
And I think what we were trying to do to each other is just to be like, it's okay to feel this way.
yeah.
And it's like, if you want to go home and that's what's going to make you happy, then you need to just go home.
Yes, definitely.
That's what we were just encouraging each other to be comfortable
Yeah.
and to make the decision that's best for us.
Yeah.
And I think for me, there was like a little bit of pressure to be like, I told people that I was going to go to Europe for 3 months, and it's like, oh my God, if I come home, I'm like a failure or something, like something
Yeah.
stupid like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, forget that. Like, I'm not bloody happy. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
sitting in this room all day, not even enjoying myself. So I may as well go home and be happy.
Totally get that. No, it's so true, because especially with the thing about like the expectations of being of like people being like, oh, you came home early, or like, weren't you meant to be there for longer? Like, oh, you thought you were meant
It's
to be.
a
It's like,
weird judgment.
yeah, it's actually, it is so strange, because it's
Yeah.
like, but I'm the one who has to live it.
Yeah.
And like for Jess and I, we had like a week or 8 days left.
Yeah.
After the Kentucky.
Yeah.
And by, I think it was like the second or third day, we had just, it had been concreted in us that it was probably best to go home. And it wasn't because we were like, oh, we should just go, but hold it out, or whatever it's called,
Right.
you
Like,
know?
stick it out.
It was, yeah, stick it
whatever.
out. It was just
Yeah.
like, we aren't having a good time anymore.
Yeah.
If we keep going and we just have a bad time, we don't want it to ruin the whole start of our trip.
Oh, of
you know what I mean?
course. It'll tarnish everything.
Yeah, it was like, it's probably just the best decision to do this now.
Yeah.
And I second guess a lot of things I do all the time, because I think about what I do all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, should I have done that? Should I have done something else?
Oh my God, I know.
So I always try, at least now, to try to take a mental note of being like, you're feeling like this in this moment.
Yep.
Remember this, like timestamp, because so you justify it.
Yep.
Because when like in hindsight, everything's
Everything's so much better.
Yeah,
It's like, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
it really was.
But when you're in it, you're like, oh my God, this is awful.
Yeah.
I want to die.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and thinking back now, we definitely made the right choice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you did too.
Oh, I definitely did, because I like got a job, like a new job right away, and it was like a really good experience for me. And it's like left me like, you know, now I can go back, and I haven't seen Eastern Europe yet, and I can
Yeah.
go back and do that when I'm ready. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's good.
You got so much time.
Yeah.
It's if you want to go back, you can just go back
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah. I'll quit my job again.
yeah. And on that really positive note, I think I'm gonna bring it to an end here.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Gemma, for coming on.
God.
I'm sorry I fumble my words and can't speak like a human most of the time.
No,
so
that's
thank
why we
for-
love you.
Oh, thank you. I need an interpreter. Is there? I always ask this, but is there anything you like want to plug or shout out?
Oh my god.
Pressure.
I don't know. You can follow me on Instagram. I am Gemma with G.RVH. Yeah. Or LinkedIn as well, if you're into that.
She is a business professional.
Yeah, let's connect.
Yeah.
Cool. And if I am single, so can I plug that?
Yes, you can.
Great.
There'll be a portrait on our website.
It's really bad, so just refer to Instagram. Yeah.
Oh, well,
awesome.
thank you again, Gemma. You're literally the best.
You're the best.
Thank you guys for listening and making it all the way through this. If you liked it, subscribe or give us a like. I'll film a better outro later. But thank you, Gemma, again. You're the best.
Bye.
Okay, bye, guys. Bye. Wow, great outro skills, me. But here we are. Thank you, Gemma, for coming on the podcast with me. It was so fun having you on. And guys, she is amazing. She is single, so please sweep off her feet. Only if you're the best, though. She deserves the best. But anyways, thank you for listening to the Selfishly podcast. If you want to find out more, feel free to check out the website at sebastian-corvey.com/podcast. You can also check the Selfishly podcast out on most social platforms such as iTunes Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube. You can also check us out on Instagram. And that's all under the Selfishly podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening. It's been so much fun for me to be getting more and more into doing the podcast. And I can't wait to share all the conversations I've been having with you guys. So now I'm going to sign off. And unfortunately, my first outro recording, I thought it was a good idea to sign off with catch you on the flip side. So for the sake of continuity, I hope you've all had an amazing day and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.